Imagine this, you're on vacation with your family, laughing, enjoying the sunshine, when suddenly, police surround you, accuse you of being suspicious, and put their hands on their guns. You've done nothing wrong, but here's the twist, they have no idea you're a highly trained FBI agent. What happens next will shock everyone watching. You there, stop where you are. The voice was sharp, loud, and cut through the warm summer air like a blade. It wasn't just a command, it was an accusation. Heads turned instantly. Conversations halted mid-sentence. James Carter stopped in his tracks, every muscle in his tall, athletic frame tightening. His wife, Maya, immediately squeezed his hand, her grip trembling. Their two children, Ella, age 9, and Noah, just 6, looked up in confusion, their carefree smiles fading into uncertainty. It had been such a beautiful day. The Carter family had woken up early, excited to explore the sunny coastal town where they were spending their summer vacation. They had spent the morning swimming in the hotel pool, chasing each other in the water, and enjoying the salty breeze that rolled in from the nearby ocean. Afterward, they'd changed into comfortable clothes and strolled along the boardwalk, stopping for ice cream and laughing as Noah got chocolate smudged all over his chin. Lunch had been at a little seafood cafe with checkered tablecloths and a view of the sparkling waves. Now, as they made their way back toward their hotel, the laughter was gone. Two uniformed police officers were walking toward them with hard, deliberate steps. Their eyes were locked on the Carters, scanning every detail, as if the family's very existence was suspicious. James, keeping his voice calm, called out, "Is there a problem, officer?" The taller of the two officers, a broad-shouldered man with a buzz cut, narrowed his eyes. One hand rested on the grip of his holstered gun, his fingers twitching slightly. "Don't play games with me," he said in a low but cutting tone. "We got a call about suspicious individuals matching your description. Step aside and keep your hands visible." Maya's pulse spiked. Suspicious individuals? Matching your description? She knew exactly what that meant. Her gaze flicked nervously to the crowd that was beginning to gather, sunbathers, families with strollers, people in sunglasses sipping cold drinks. They weren't here to help, they were here to watch. They hadn't done anything wrong. They had no reason to be stopped. And yet, here they were, singled out in broad daylight. James's voice stayed even, but his jaw tightened. "We've been walking from lunch. We're staying at the Grand Coast Hotel." A whisper carried from somewhere behind Maya. A woman's voice, loud enough for others to hear. "What did they do?" Ella's small hand clutched at her mother's leg. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" she whispered, her brown eyes wide and scared. Maya crouched slightly, stroking her daughter's hair. "No, baby. We didn't do anything wrong." The shorter officer stepped to the side, flanking them. "ID now," he demanded. James reached for his wallet slowly, deliberately, every move calculated. But before he could pull it free, the taller officer took a step forward, his voice snapping like a whip. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Gasps came from the onlookers. Someone muttered, "Wow, they're serious," while another person took out a phone and started recording. The sunlight reflected off the camera lens, the red record dot blinking like a warning. Maya straightened, her voice trembling but defiant. "Officer, please," he was just reaching for his ID. "We're here on vacation. This is a mistake." The shorter officer shot her a cold glance. "Ma'am, step back. You're interfering." Ella started to cry softly. Noah pressed his face into James's side, holding onto his father's shirt like it was a lifeline. James's mind raced. He had been in tense situations before, but never like this, not with his children right there, watching everything. He could feel the tension in the air thickening, see the way people's eyes flicked between him and the officers, waiting for something to happen. His deep breath came slow and steady. He knew exactly what this was. And he knew that one wrong move, a raised voice, a sudden gesture, could change everything. "Look," he said, locking eyes with the taller cop, "I don't know who called you, but I suggest you check your facts before you keep harassing my family." The officer's lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. Turn around. Hands behind your back. The words hit Maya like ice water. Her chest tightened, her breath catching. And just like that, the perfect day was over, replaced by fear, humiliation, and a scene that would soon spiral into something none of them could have imagined. The taller officer's command, turn around. Hands behind your back, echoed in James's mind like a bad dream. He could feel his children's eyes on him, their confusion and fear radiating in the heavy summer air. The shorter officer stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the sidewalk. His hand hovered near his own holstered weapon, a silent warning. "Where are you coming from?" he asked, his voice clipped and demanding. "From lunch," James said calmly, forcing his voice to remain level. "We're staying at the Grand Coast Hotel." The taller cop narrowed his eyes. "What room number?" "That's not relevant unless I've committed a crime," James replied evenly. He could already see how this was going. They weren't asking because they needed answers, they were asking because they wanted control. "ID, now," the taller officer barked again. James slowly reached for his wallet, his every move exaggerated so there could be no misunderstanding. But as soon as his hand went toward his pocket, the taller cop stepped forward sharply, grabbing his wrist. "Keep your hands where I can see them," he shouted, loud enough to draw even more attention from bystanders. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. "Why are they stopping them?" a man whispered to his wife. "Probably stole something," another muttered. The comments made Maya's blood boil. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. "Officer, please, my husband was just getting his ID for you. We're here on vacation. This is a mistake." The shorter cop turned toward her, his tone harsh. "Ma'am, step back now. You're interfering with a police investigation." "Investigation?" Maya shot back. "You haven't even asked what happened. You just saw us walking and assumed." "Ma'am, step back," the shorter cop snapped again, his voice sharp enough to make Ella flinch. Ella began crying harder now, her small voice breaking. "Mommy, tell them to stop." Noah, eyes wide, clung to his father's side. "Daddy, why are they mad at us?" James's stomach turned. Every instinct as a father screamed at him to shield his children from this moment, but his training as a federal agent told him that one wrong move could make things worse. "Officers," James said, his tone still controlled but carrying an unmistakable weight, "I have no problem showing you my ID. But you need to calm down and stop frightening my family." The taller cop smirked. "You don't get to tell us how to do our jobs." "Then maybe you should start doing it properly," James replied, his patience thinning. The taller officer's smirk vanished. "That's it. Turn around." He reached for his handcuffs. Maya's voice cracked. "You can't just." "Ma'am, I said step back," the shorter cop barked again, stepping between her and James. The taller officer grabbed James's arm, twisting it behind his back. The metal of the cuffs glinted in the sun. Cameras were recording now from multiple angles, tourists, locals, even a teenager on a skateboard who had stopped mid-roll to film the scene. James glanced sideways and caught Maya's terrified eyes. He gave her a look she knew well. It said, "Trust me. I have a plan." The taller officer tightened his grip, clearly enjoying the sense of control. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. But James wasn't just another civilian caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Underneath the calm exterior, he was assessing every detail, the officer's movements, the crowd's reactions, the exact position of his wallet. He knew he had the power to end this, but timing was everything. The humiliation burned, but he could feel the moment coming when everything would change. The cold steel of the handcuffs hovered inches from James's wrists. The taller officer's grip was firm, but his arrogance was stronger. Every movement, every word was dripping with the assumption that he had total control. James's mind was calm, though. He had been in tense situations before, undercover operations, dangerous arrests, interrogations with armed suspects, but this was different. This time, his wife and children were watching. And this time, the danger wasn't from a criminal. As the taller officer prepared to snap the cuffs shut, James spoke in a low but steady voice. "Before you do that, there's something you should know." The officer barely glanced at him. "We'll talk at the station." "No," James said, a sudden firmness in his tone that made the shorter cop glance over. "You'll listen right here." The taller officer gave a mocking laugh. "Oh, this I gotta hear." James kept his voice calm, deliberate, and just loud enough for the nearest bystanders, and the recording phones, to pick up. "You think you're arresting just some guy walking back from lunch with his family. But that's not who I am." The taller cop rolled his eyes. "And who are you supposed to be? A celebrity?" "No," James said simply. "I'm Special Agent James Carter, FBI." For a moment, the entire boardwalk seemed to go quiet. Even the rhythmic crashing of the waves in the distance felt muted. The taller officer froze, his smirk vanishing. The shorter one blinked rapidly, his posture stiffening. James moved slowly, deliberately, and reached for his back pocket, this time without interruption. He pulled out a black leather badge wallet, its gold emblem gleaming in the bright sunlight. He flipped it open, revealing his official credentials, photo ID, name, agency seal, and clearance details. "Here's my identification," James said, holding it up for both officers, and the nearest camera, to see. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I strongly recommend you put those handcuffs away before you add false arrest of a federal agent to your list of mistakes today." The taller officer's jaw clenched. He tried to maintain his authority, but his voice wavered slightly. "Agent Carter, we had no idea." "Exactly," James interrupted sharply. "You didn't know. And you didn't bother to ask. You saw a black family walking and assumed we were trouble." A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone near the back muttered, "Dang, they messed with the wrong guy." The shorter cop stepped forward, his hands raised slightly in a placating gesture. "Sir, we received a call from a concerned citizen." James turned his head slowly, locking eyes with him. "Plenty of false calls happen every day. It's your job to assess the situation, not escalate it. And certainly not in front of children." Maya, still holding Ella close, spoke up for the first time since the reveal. Her voice was steady, but there was fire in it. "Do you have any idea what you just put my kids through? They're terrified. They think their father's a criminal because of you." Ella wiped her tear-streaked cheeks with the back of her hand. Noah clung to his father's leg, peeking out at the officers with wary eyes. James shifted his gaze back to the taller officer. "Badge numbers. Both of you." The taller cop hesitated, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. But with cameras filming from every angle, he had no choice. He muttered his badge number, and the shorter cop followed suit. James calmly took out his phone, entered the numbers into a note, and then held his phone up. "You're both being recorded now. Internal Affairs will be very interested in this conversation." The taller officer stepped back, the once commanding presence now replaced with visible discomfort. The shorter one glanced at the crowd, clearly aware that the situation had flipped entirely. Around them, people were whispering, some shaking their heads, others smirking at the poetic justice. Phones stayed trained on the scene, capturing every word, every flicker of expression. James closed his badge wallet and slid it back into his pocket. His voice was calm, but the authority in it was undeniable. "Now, officers, is there anything else you'd like to accuse me of before you walk away?" Silence. The taller cop looked at the ground. The shorter one gave a curt shake of his head. The tide had turned, and James knew the next move was his. The taller cop's pale face said it all, the confidence, the authority, the arrogance he had displayed moments earlier had drained away, replaced by the sharp sting of realizing he had picked the wrong man to intimidate. "Agent Carter, we apologize for the misunderstanding," he said, his voice quieter now, almost timid. James didn't move. His gaze was locked on the taller officer like a spotlight. "A misunderstanding? You stopped my family without probable cause, threatened to handcuff me in front of my children, and escalated the situation without even asking a single reasonable question. That's not a misunderstanding, that's negligence. The shorter cop stepped in, clearly trying to salvage what was left of their dignity. "Sir, we received a call from a citizen." "I've heard that excuse before," James cut him off. His voice was calm, but the steel in it was undeniable. "Plenty of false calls happen every day, and it's your duty to verify before you act. But you didn't do that, did you? You jumped straight to treating us like criminals." Maya stepped forward, still holding Ella's hand. Her voice trembled, but it carried the weight of a mother's fury. "Do you realize my children will never forget this? They'll remember how 2 officers treated their father like a threat when all we were doing was walking back from lunch." The taller cop swallowed hard. "Ma'am, we..." "No," Maya said, her tone firm. "Save it. I don't want excuses." Around them, the crowd was silent, the air thick with the kind of tension that comes when the balance of power has completely shifted. Phones stayed pointed at the officers, and James knew every word, every movement, was being captured from multiple angles. "Badge numbers," James repeated, holding his phone ready. Both officers recited them, reluctantly, and James entered them into his notes. Then he lifted his phone, hitting record. "For the record, I'm informing you both that this incident will be reported to Internal Affairs and your department's Professional Standards Unit. The video evidence from multiple witnesses will be submitted along with my statement." The taller cop's shoulders slumped. The shorter one avoided eye contact entirely. James took a step closer, not aggressively, but with the kind of presence that made both men instinctively shift back. "I've worked cases involving officers who abused their authority. Trust me when I say, those cases never end well for the ones who think a badge gives them the right to bypass the law." The taller officer gave a stiff nod, his voice almost a whisper. "Understood, sir." James glanced at his wife and children. Maya's grip on Ella had eased slightly, though her eyes still burned. Noah was watching the officers with a mix of fear and curiosity, clearly sensing that something big had just happened. "You can leave now," James said finally. And with that, the 2 officers turned and walked away, not with the swagger they had arrived with, but with the heavy, awkward steps of men who knew they had just been publicly humbled. The Carters stood in the middle of the boardwalk for a moment, the crowd slowly dispersing now that the drama was over. Some people gave sympathetic nods, others avoided eye contact, perhaps ashamed of having stood and watched without stepping in. Maya knelt down to face her children. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Ella sniffled and nodded, still clinging to her mother's arm. Noah tilted his head, looking up at James. "Daddy, you really work for the FBI?" James smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, buddy. I help keep people safe." He glanced at Ella. "And today, I made sure we were safe too." They began walking back toward the hotel, but James's mind was already working. He had seen countless cases of profiling and wrongful stops in his career, but it was different when it happened to you, and even more so when your children witnessed it. This wasn't just about an apology. It was about accountability. When they reached their hotel room, James took out his laptop and connected his phone. Within minutes, he had uploaded the video he'd taken, along with several clips sent to him by witnesses from the scene. The angles showed everything: the aggressive tone, the unnecessary escalation, and the exact moment the officer's attitudes changed after he revealed his badge. He attached the footage to an official incident report addressed to the local police chief, Internal Affairs, and his own FBI superiors. His message was clear: this was unacceptable conduct that required immediate investigation. Later that evening, James received a phone call from the police chief. The man's tone was formal but uneasy. "Agent Carter, I want to personally apologize for the actions of my officers today. We've already opened a review and will be taking disciplinary action." "I appreciate that," James replied, "but an apology doesn't erase the fear my kids felt. You need better training, better judgment, and a culture where situations like this don't happen in the first place." The chief hesitated, then said, "Understood. We'll work on it." The story didn't end there. Within days, the video spread online, amassing millions of views. Social media was flooded with comments, some expressing outrage, others sharing similar experiences. News outlets picked it up, turning it into a national discussion about racial profiling and police accountability. James didn't bask in the attention. He knew the spotlight would fade, but he hoped the message wouldn't. More importantly, he wanted his children to see that standing up for yourself, calmly, firmly, and with the truth, could create real change. One night, a few days later, the family sat on their hotel balcony, watching the sun sink below the horizon. Maya rested her head on James's shoulder. "You know," she said quietly, "we came here for a vacation, but maybe this was meant to happen." James looked out at the ocean, the waves reflecting the last golden light of the day. "If it makes even one person think twice before judging someone by their skin color," he said, "then maybe it was worth it." And in that moment, with the sea breeze in their hair and the sound of laughter returning to their children's voices, the Carters knew this trip would be unforgettable, not because of the trouble, but because of the strength they found in each other. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, just imagine what's coming next. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another jaw-dropping twist. And hey, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you would have done in this situation. See you in the next story.